In this video, we're going to revisit the topic of functions. Now, the last time we talked about functions, we basically just called them, and the function did some prearranged activity or prearranged command. But what we want to do is find a way to customize the functions to do something that is more helpful to us, instead of just doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I'm going to create a really quick function called addTwoNumbers, like so. This should all be reviewed to you so far. Now what we're going to do is we're going to allow the function call, so for example, the function call, to specify what two numbers are going to be added together. Because as of last time we talked about functions, we could hard code them to say like 4 plus 9 or 10 plus 2 or whatever, but we didn't have any control over what two numbers were going to be added together. But now we will. So let me show you. We're going to say that the first one is going to be called num1. That's going to be the name of the variable being referenced, and it's going to be a double type. And then we'll also have a second number called num2. And you don't need to use num1 or num2. I'm just calling them that because it's easy for me to remember. And it's also going to be a double data type. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete this function call and recreate it or retype it. Because as I type it, it'll actually, if I double click right here, it'll automatically populate this particular function call with some required information that must be included in the function call. So this thing right here, this is the function name, and these are basically the arguments. We're going to send two arguments, this one and this one. We're going to send them into this function right here. So our double, we're going to say, let's say it's 3.14, and the second one's going to be 2.7. That works. So this 3.14 gets assigned to the variable called num1, and the 2.7 gets assigned to the variable num2. And notice how these variables here and these variables here have the same name. That's intentional. That's actually required, because if I try to name it something different, watch for the error message. There we go. It has to be named the same thing. And then once we're up here, we can go ahead and take the 3.14 and the 2.7 and add them together. So we'll get num1 plus num2. And that's going to give us 5.84 right over here. What we can do now is we can print the result to the console if you like, and it'll show up down there. What we can also do is we can actually return this result back to the original function call down here. So what we can do is create a variable or a constant or whatever, and we'll call it sum. And we're going to make it equal to this particular function call. What the goal here is to send these two numbers into the function, add them together, and whatever the result is will be returned back to the original calling statement. And that right there is going to then be assigned to the variable sum. To do that though, we need to create a return type. You do it by typing a little arrow and then specify the data type that you want to return, which obviously it's going to be double. So what happens now is we need to create a return statement. And in fact, better yet, let's just do this. Instead of printing, we'll go ahead and return. So return and there we go. We've actually gone ahead and passed these two numbers into the function. The two numbers have been added together. And then whatever the sum is, or whatever the total between the two of them are, they got returned, because specifically this allows us to return this little arrow and double. This says we are able to return a double value. So without this statement right here, if we deleted that, this return statement would not work properly. It wouldn't. It would get an error message. So put that back. This allows us to return double, so we will return double. And when we return that double, whatever this added up together is, that value is going to replace the entire calling statement. So 5.84 up here is going to take the place of this entire line of code that I have highlighted. So this is equal to 5.84, and that value gets assigned to the variable sum. And we can go ahead and print sum like so, and then 5.84. So that's how you put values into a function and then get output from that function. You get a result. Now, of course, you can have return types of really any type you want. You could have a string return type, you can have an integer return type, you can have really anything you want. I just use double in this particular situation because if you have doubles being sent into the function and then you do math on those doubles, then you can pretty much only return doubles. But if these were integers like int, and let's say we're going to only pass in 3 and 2, then we could go ahead and return the value as an int, and the result would be 5, because 3 plus 2 equals 5. Now, something else I want to go over is the variable name used in the function and outside the function. In both cases, it's num1 and num2. Now, if we wanted to use a different variable name over here, maybe you want to do x and y, we could do that. What we do is up here, we would type in x and y. And what this does is this x references the x in the function call. This y references the y in the function call. This num1 references the num1 inside the function. And this num2 represents this num2 inside the function. So whatever value is assigned to x gets passed into the function assigned to x. Whatever value gets assigned to x also gets assigned to num1. Similarly, the number 2 would get passed into the variable y over here, and whatever value gets assigned to variable y will also get assigned to num2 and then assigned down there. So the first variable always corresponds to the variable in the calling function, and the second variable always references the variable that's inside the function itself, the function definition. And if you don't have that additional variable, then we just default and say that is the same thing both inside and outside the function, like so. Now, one last thing I want to go over in this video. What happens if you don't want to have this at all. Maybe you just want to say, oh, we're just going to pass in 3 and 2, and that's all we're going to do. We're not going to add any additional information in here. You can do that as well. The way you accomplish that is you go up here and you put an underscore, like so. This underscore just means that when you do the function call down here, you don't need to specify any variable names or anything like that. It's just put the numbers or put the values, and that's all you have to do. So that is it. That's all I wanted to go over in this video about functions. Just make sure to understand how to pass values into a function. Here, these are called parameters, and these are called arguments. So the arguments are passed into the parameters, and then something is done to the values passed in, and then ultimately we return some information as an output, and that can be assigned to a variable that is outside of the function, like so. So just understand arguments and return statements. If you have that understood, then you're golden. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.